What if the thing blocking your progress isn't your past, your circumstances, or other people, but your own thinking? Every day, your mind creates resistance before reality ever does. You hesitate, you overthink, you imagine failure long before action begins. And without realizing it, you start fighting battles that exist only in your head. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. Meditations reminds us that the impediment to action advances action. The obstacle doesn't stop the way. It becomes the way, especially in your thoughts. Most people try to eliminate mental discomfort. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Use it, train with it, turn resistance into leverage. Because the mind that creates fear can also create discipline if you learn how to command it. In this video, you'll learn how Stoic principles transform mental obstacles into forward momentum, not by avoiding struggle, but by thinking correctly through it. Stay with me. And if this resonates, comment below. My mind works for me, not against me. 1. Your thoughts are the first battlefield. Before life ever tests you, your mind does. Most people believe obstacles come from the outside. Difficult people, bad timing, unfair systems, past mistakes. But if you look closely, you'll notice something uncomfortable. Long before reality pushes back, your thoughts step in first. Doubt appears before difficulty. Fear arrives before danger. Hesitation shows up before effort. This is the first battlefield, and most people lose it without realizing a fight even happened. Stoic philosophy starts here because the Stoics understood a brutal truth. You never face events directly. You face your interpretation of them. That interpretation decides whether an obstacle weakens you or sharpens you. Epictetus stated it clearly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. That single idea dismantles the illusion that life is attacking you. What's really happening is simpler and harder to accept. Your mind is reacting before you choose how to respond. Think about it. A critical email arrives and your chest tightens. A challenge appears and your thoughts race to worst-case scenarios. An opportunity shows up and your mind whispers reasons you're not ready. Nothing has happened yet, but the battle has already begun. This is where most people waste their strength. They argue with reality in their head. They replay conversations that haven't happened. They resist outcomes they can't control, and the mind, unchecked, becomes a factory of obstacles, manufacturing friction where none is required. The Stoic does something radically different. Instead of fighting thoughts with emotion, the Stoic disciplines attention. They recognize that thoughts are not commands, they are signals, and signals can be examined. Here's the shift. You don't suppress thoughts. You don't indulge them. You observe them. When you slow down and watch your thinking, you begin to see patterns. The same fears, the same stories, the same mental resistance showing up in different disguises. And once you see a pattern clearly, it loses its authority. This is why Stoicism treats awareness as power, not positive thinking, not motivation. Awareness. Because awareness turns the obstacle inward into leverage. Let's ground this in real life. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. A difficult project, a tough conversation, a risky decision. Person A thinks, what if I fail? What if this exposes me? Person B thinks, this is uncomfortable. That means it matters. Same situation, completely different outcome. The difference isn't talent. It isn't luck. It's the lens. The Stoic lens asks one decisive question: is this thought helping me act with reason or pulling me into fear? If it's fear, it gets labeled, not obeyed. If it's useful, it gets used. This is why your mind is the first obstacle and also the first path forward. Once you understand this, you stop trying to make life easier. Instead, you make your thinking clearer, And clarity is stronger than comfort. Here's a simple practice you can use today. When resistance appears, pause. Name the thought exactly as it is. This is fear of judgment. Then ask, what action would a disciplined mind take anyway? That question shifts you from reaction to command. You stop being dragged by your thoughts and start leading them, and this is the foundation everything else is built on. Not confidence, not certainty, command of attention. Because when you control where your mind goes, obstacles stop being walls, they become training grounds. Remember this line and carry it forward. Awareness turns resistance into leverage. That's how the Stoic enters the battlefield and wins before the fight even begins. 2. Resistance is a signal, not a stop sign. When your mind resists something, most people assume it means stop. Stop pushing. Stop trying. Stop going there. The Stoic reads resistance differently. Resistance is not a warning sign. It's information. That tightness in your chest before a difficult conversation. That urge to procrastinate when the work actually matters. That mental heaviness before taking responsibility. Those are not signals of danger. They are signals of growth pressure. Stoicism teaches that discomfort appears precisely at the edge of expansion. Not because something is wrong, but because something important is being demanded of you. This is why the Stoics didn't seek comfort. They trained for difficulty. Marcus Aurelius ruled during wars, plagues, and betrayal. Yet instead of wishing obstacles away, he reframed them. His insight was simple and ruthless. What resists you is shaping you. Modern minds misread resistance because we've been conditioned to avoid it. We associate discomfort with failure. So when resistance appears, we retreat, distract ourselves, or wait for motivation to return. But motivation is unreliable. Resistance is honest. Resistance tells you, this matters. This challenges your current limits. This requires a stronger version of you. If you always move away from resistance, you train avoidance. If you learn to move through it, you train strength. Here's the critical Stoic distinction. Pain that comes from discipline strengthens you. Pain that comes from avoidance compounds and follows you. The mind prefers the second because it feels easier in the moment. But the Stoic chooses the first because it builds capacity. Think about resistance like weight on a barbell. No one complains that the bar is heavy. That's the point. The resistance is what forces adaptation. Mental resistance works the same way. Fear before action is mental weight. Doubt is mental resistance. Discomfort is the load. The Stoic doesn't ask, how do I get rid of this? They ask, how do I use this? Here's a practical reframe you can apply immediately. The next time resistance appears, don't negotiate with it. Don't dramatize it. Don't try to eliminate it. Simply say, this resistance is training. Then take one controlled step forward anyway. Not the whole task, not the perfect action. One deliberate step. This does two things. It proves your mind wrong about danger. It converts resistance into momentum. Once you move, resistance often dissolves. Not because it vanished, but because it did its job. This is how Stoic discipline is built. Not by heroic bursts of effort, but by repeated decisions to act despite internal friction. Over time, something shifts. What once felt like a wall starts to feel like a doorway. What once triggered avoidance becomes a cue for action, and resistance stops controlling your behavior. Remember this clearly. Resistance is not blocking the path. Resistance is pointing to it. Learn to read that signal correctly, and your mind stops being an enemy. It becomes a guide, testing you, strengthening you, preparing you for the next level. And once you understand this, you stop asking for an easier road. You start walking straight into the work that built you. 3. The mind creates the obstacle. before reality, does most suffering never comes from what actually happens. It comes from what your mind predicts, rehearses, and magnifies long before anything is real. You worry about failure before you begin. You feel rejected before anyone responds. You experience loss before anything is taken from you. This is not caution, this is mental self-sabotage. The Stoics identified this pattern clearly. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That single sentence exposes one of the mind's most destructive habits: anticipatory pain. The mind tries to protect you by forecasting danger. But without discipline, that forecasting becomes distortion. It exaggerates outcomes, inflates consequences, and turns uncertainty into catastrophe. Nothing has happened yet, but internally, you've already failed, already been judged, already lost. This is how the mind creates obstacles that reality never asked for. Think about how often fear stops action before evidence does. How many opportunities died in your head without ever being tested? How many conversations never happened because you imagined the outcome and decided it was already lost? Stoicism doesn't deny that negative outcomes exist. It denies the usefulness of suffering in advance. Here's the Stoic correction: you prepare for difficulty without emotionally living inside it. Preparation is rational. Premature suffering is wasteful. The disciplined mind separates the two. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" the Stoic asks, "What is actually happening right now?" Most of the time, the answer is simple. Right now, you're safe. Right now, you're capable. Right now, nothing catastrophic is occurring. That clarity collapses imagined obstacles instantly. Here's a practical Stoic tool to reclaim control when the mind spirals. When a fear appears, write it down in one sentence. Then ask two questions. Is this happening now, or is this imagined? If it did happen, what would rational action look like? Notice what happens. The fear shrinks when it's defined. The obstacle weakens when it's named, and the mind loses its power to dramatize in silence. This is why Stoics favored journaling and self-interrogation, not for emotional release, but for clarity. Clarity is how imagined obstacles are exposed. Reality is usually manageable. Your mind just tells stories that make it feel unbearable. Once you stop letting imagination run unchecked, something changes. You stop bracing for impact all the time. You stop wasting energy on futures that never arrive. You meet life as it is, not as your fear describes it. And this is crucial to understand. An obstacle that exists only in thought has no authority over action. The moment you see that, you reclaim momentum, not because life gets easier, but because your mind stops fighting shadows. And when the mind stops inventing resistance, the path forward becomes obvious. Not painless, but clear. That clarity is power. 4. Control the lens, not the world. Most mental suffering comes from a silent mistake, trying to control what was never yours to control. People waste years fighting outcomes, other people's behavior, timing, luck, opinions, and circumstances. And when those things don't bend, frustration turns inward. Anxiety grows, anger builds. The mind feels trapped. Stoicism cuts through this confusion with ruthless clarity. Epictetus defined it with a single distinction: some things are up to us, and some things are not. Peace begins the moment you stop mixing the two. Here is the shift most people never make. You do not control what happens, how others react. Outcomes, recognition, timing, but you always control. Your judgment, your interpretation, your response, your effort, your character. Every obstacle has two layers: the event itself and the lens through which you see it. You can't always change the event, but you can always change the lens. This is where mental power is built. Most people aim their energy outward, trying to force the world to cooperate. The Stoic pulls energy inward, refining perception. That's why Stoicism doesn't promise comfort. It promises stability. Think of your mind like the steering wheel of a ship in a storm. You don't command the waves, you don't control the wind. But if you hold the wheel steady, the ship still moves forward. Lose the wheel, and even calm seas become dangerous. This is what mental discipline actually looks like in real time. When something triggers you, you don't react immediately. You pause, not to suppress emotion, but to separate fact from interpretation. A Stoic pause has 3 steps. First, pause. Create a gap between stimulus and response. Even 2 seconds is enough to break automatic reaction. Second, label, name what's happening without drama. This is disappointment. This is fear of judgment. This is frustration. Labeling turns emotion into information. Third, choose. Ask one decisive question. What response aligns with reason and self-respect right now? That's it. You don't need to feel calm first. You don't need certainty. You don't need approval. You need alignment. When you control the lens, obstacles lose their emotional charge. They're no longer personal attacks. They become neutral data, things to respond to, not suffer over. This is why Stoics remain grounded in chaos. Not because they're numb, but because they've trained their perception. They understand this deeply. You don't master life by dominating events. You master life by governing interpretation. Once you internalize that, something profound happens. External pressure no longer collapses you. Unexpected outcomes no longer derail you. And obstacles stop feeling like verdicts on your worth. They become problems to solve, situations to adapt to, training grounds for judgment. And when judgment is disciplined, forward motion becomes inevitable. Because the world may resist you, but your mind no longer does. And that is real control. 5. Turn inner conflict into inner strength. Most people try to get rid of inner conflict. They want to eliminate fear, silence doubt, suppress anger, and erase uncertainty. When those emotions appear, they assume something is wrong with them. The Stoics saw it differently. Inner conflict isn't a defect, it's raw material. Every emotion carries energy. If that energy isn't directed, it turns inward and destabilizes you. But if it's disciplined, it becomes fuel. This is Stoic alchemy, the art of transforming internal friction into forward force. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that emotions are not enemies, but signals requiring leadership. Anger shows you care about standards. Fear reveals what matters. Frustration exposes resistance between values and action. The problem isn't emotion. The problem is letting emotion drive. The Stoic does the opposite. They redirect. Anger becomes focus. Fear becomes preparation. Doubt becomes precision. Instead of asking, "How do I stop feeling this?" the Stoic asks, "What disciplined action does this feeling demand?" This single question changes everything. Take anger, for example. Untrained, it lashes out or corrodes inward. Trained, it sharpens boundaries, enforces standards, and fuels decisive action. Fear, when unmanaged, paralyzes. When disciplined, it forces clarity, planning, and respect for consequences. Even doubt has value. It pushes you to refine skills, check assumptions, and prepare more thoroughly. Nothing inside you is wasted unless you let it run ungoverned. Here's how to practice this in real time. When a strong emotion arises, don't react immediately. Pause and identify the emotion precisely. Not bad, not overwhelmed. Be specific. Then ask, if I were calm and rational, what would I do next anyway? That action is your answer. You act through emotion, not after it disappears. Over time, your nervous system learns something critical. Emotions no longer control behavior. Behavior is chosen first. Emotion follows. This is how inner conflict becomes inner strength. Instead of fighting yourself, you recruit yourself. And the result is a quiet kind of power, one most people never develop. Because when your internal world stops sabotaging you, the external world loses its leverage. Remember this line: emotion is energy. Discipline decides its direction. Once you master that, your inner world stops being chaotic. It becomes aligned. 6. Train the mind like a muscle. A weak mind isn't born weak. It becomes weak through lack of training. Most people expect their mind to stay calm, focused, and disciplined under pressure, without ever conditioning it. They consume comfort, avoid difficulty, and react emotionally. Then wonder why their thinking collapses when life gets hard. The Stoics understood something modern culture forgets. The mind must be trained the same way the body is trained. Left untrained, it defaults to fear, avoidance, and impulse. Trained deliberately, it becomes steady, resilient, and obedient. Seneca practiced what the Stoics called voluntary hardship, not because suffering was noble, but because controlled difficulty builds immunity to uncontrolled hardship. This is where Stoic discipline separates from motivation culture. Motivation waits until you feel ready. Training happens whether you feel ready or not. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Do I feel like this?" They ask, "Is this strengthening my character?" Mental training works through intentional resistance. Small, chosen discomforts teach the mind a crucial lesson. I can act without comfort. I can remain steady without ease. Silence when you want to explain yourself. Focus when distraction is available. Hold posture and breath when anxiety rises. Do the work when enthusiasm is gone. These aren't dramatic acts. They're quiet repetitions, and repetition is what rewires the mind. Think of it this way. Every time you avoid discomfort, you train the mind to retreat. Every time you stay present inside discomfort, you train the mind to endure. There is no neutral choice. This is why Stoic practices look simple, but feel demanding. Cold exposure, intentional silence, deliberate restraint, difficult conversations handled calmly. Each one teaches the same lesson. I am not ruled by impulse. Over time, something profound happens. The mind stops panicking at pressure. It stops negotiating with fear. It stops turning resistance into drama, because it has been trained daily, deliberately, patiently. Here's a practical Stoic rule you can apply immediately. Choose one small mental discomfort each day and do it on purpose, not to suffer, to strengthen command. When the mind realizes you're in charge, it stops rebelling. And that's the paradox most people miss. The mind you don't train will train against you, but the mind you train becomes your strongest ally. This is not about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming reliable under pressure, and reliability, internal reliability, is what carries you forward when everything else shakes. That's how training turns thought into discipline, and discipline turns obstacles into pathways. 7. The way forward is through, not around. When the mind meets resistance, its first instinct is avoidance, delay, distraction, rationalization, waiting for a better moment. But avoidance doesn't remove obstacles. It extends them. What you refuse to face today follows you tomorrow, stronger, heavier, and more demanding. The Stoics understood this pattern clearly. That's why they rejected escape and chose engagement. The path forward has never been around difficulty. It has always been through it. This is the essence of amor fati, the Stoic practice of accepting, even embracing what stands in your way. Not because pain is desirable, but because resistance contains instruction. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the fire doesn't destroy what's thrown into it, it consumes it and grows stronger. The same is true of the disciplined mind. Avoidance weakens you because it teaches the mind that discomfort is dangerous. Engagement strengthens you because it proves the opposite. Every obstacle asks one question: will you step forward or step away? And every time you step forward, something changes internally. Fear loses its authority. Doubt loses its volume. The mind stops exaggerating the cost of action. You realize that clarity only appears after movement, not before it. This is why waiting to feel ready is a trap. Readiness is built by walking into uncertainty, not by thinking your way out of it. The Stoic rule is simple and uncompromising. Face the thing you're avoiding, calmly, deliberately, without drama. Not all at once, not perfectly, but directly. Identify the one task, conversation, or decision you've been circling, the one your mind keeps postponing. That is not coincidence. That is the path pointing at you. Step into it with composure. You don't need confidence. You don't need certainty. You need alignment. Once action begins, resistance loses structure. It collapses into manageable effort, and effort, unlike fear, can be directed. This is the final Stoic inversion. The obstacle doesn't block progress, it defines it. When you stop trying to escape discomfort and start moving through it, the mind stops fighting reality. And when the mind stops fighting, energy returns. Not because the road is easier, but because it's clear. Forward is not painless. Forward is honest, and honesty is the strongest ground you can stand on. That is the way. When you truly accept that the way forward is through, something subtle but powerful happens inside you. You stop negotiating with discomfort. Most people waste enormous energy trying to feel better before acting. They wait for fear to disappear, for confidence to arrive, for clarity to feel safe. But clarity is not the cause of action. Clarity is the result of action. The Stoics knew this because they lived in uncertainty as a default condition. Wars, illness, exile, loss. None of these waited for permission. So they trained themselves to move forward without psychological guarantees. This is where modern minds struggle most. You want assurance that your effort will pay off. You want certainty that you won't be embarrassed. You want proof that pain will be temporary. But life doesn't offer contracts. And Stoicism doesn't offer comfort. It offers competence. Competence comes from repeated exposure to what you once avoided. Every time you walk directly into resistance, your nervous system updates its understanding of reality. It learns, I can survive this. I can function inside this. I am not as fragile as I thought. That lesson cannot be learned intellectually. It must be learned experientially. This is why thinking your way out of obstacles never works for long. The mind will always invent new doubts, new scenarios, new reasons to hesitate. But action collapses those illusions. When you step forward, fear loses detail. When you engage, doubt loses narrative. When you endure, the mind loses leverage. This is how the obstacle becomes the way, not metaphorically, but neurologically. Over time, you stop seeing challenges as interruptions to your life. You start seeing them as the structure of your life, the training ground where judgment is refined and character is revealed. And here's the final shift most people miss. Once you stop avoiding what's difficult, your mind becomes quieter, not because problems disappear, but because there's no longer internal argument, no constant debate about whether you should act. You simply act. This is where real peace comes from, not from ease, but from alignment. Alignment between what you know is right and what you are willing to do. The Stoic doesn't ask, how do I feel about this? They ask, what does this moment demand of me? And then they answer with action. Not rushed, not emotional, not dramatic, just steady. If there is one thing to carry forward from this entire reflection, let it be this. Nothing ahead of you is as heavy as the resistance you create by avoiding it. Once you understand that, the path stops feeling hostile. It feels honest, hard, but fair. And when the mind finally stops fighting the road, every step forward becomes lighter, That is Stoic freedom. Not freedom from obstacles, but freedom through them.